Airstrikes kill child in Gaza as conflict escalates. Iran denies U.S. allegations of assassination plot in Mexico. Typhoon Fong leaves trail of destruction in Philippines. Sudan medics accuse RSF of concealing genocide in Darfur. Good afternoon. Welcome to the World in 30 Minutes on Politics and Business Television. I'm Fatima Abubakar Oibo. Many thanks for joining us. Details of this news story and more content to come after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now the news in full. Tensions in the Middle East have intensified as Israeli air raids and drone strikes targeted multiple areas in Gaza, killing at least 2 people, including a child. The attacks struck eastern Gaza City and parts of the southern enclave, according to local reports. The renewed violence comes amid ongoing clashes and a deepening humanitarian crisis, with over 68,000 Palestinians reportedly killed since the conflict reignited in October 2023. The strikes also extended to the occupied West Bank and southern Lebanon, where an Israeli drone reportedly killed 1 person. Human rights groups and international observers have expressed concern over the rising civilian toll, particularly among children. As diplomatic efforts stall, the United Nations continues to call for restraint in negotiations to prevent further loss of life and regional destabilization. In a landmark diplomatic moment, Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara is set to meet U.S. President Donald Trump at the White House, marking the first official visit by a Syrian leader since the country's independence in 1946. The talks are expected to focus on Syria's potential role in the U.S.-led coalition against ISIL, the lifting of remaining sanctions, and broader efforts to normalize relations. The meeting follows al-Shara's removal from the U.S. terrorism blacklist and his earlier engagement with President Trump in Saudi Arabia 6 months ago. Al-Shara, who came to power in December 2024 after leading a successful opposition campaign that ousted Bashar al-Assad, has been actively seeking to rebuild Syria's international standing. His visit to Washington comes just weeks after high-level meetings with Russian President Vladimir Putin and IMF officials, signaling a strategic pivot towards global cooperation. Analysts say the outcome of this meeting could reshape U.S.-Syria relations and influence regional stability. Meanwhile, air travel across, citing severe weather conditions and staffing shortages. The mass cancellations have led thousands of passengers stranded at airports, with major hubs like Chicago, New York, and Atlanta experiencing the worst disruption. Industry analysts warn that if the trend continues, air travel could slow to a trickle during the busy holiday season. Airlines have urged travelers to check flight statuses before heading to the airport and consider flexible rebooking options. The Federal Aviation Administration is closely monitoring the situation, while consumer advocates are calling for stronger passenger protection policies. With winter storms looming and operational challenges mounting, the aviation sector faces a critical test in maintaining service reliability. Well, in a dramatic turn on Capitol Hill, 8 Senate Democrats broke ranks to support a Republican-led bill aimed at ending the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. The procedural vote passed with a 60-40 margin, advancing a stopgap funding measure that would keep the government open until January 30. The bill includes funding for food aid and the legislative branch, but notably excludes a guaranteed extension of Affordable Care Act subsidies, a key Democratic priority. The bipartisan move has stirred tensions within the Democratic caucus, with Minority Leader Chuck Schumer opposing the deal. Some of the defecting senators, including former governors and swing state representatives, cited the urgent need to restore halted federal aid programs. As negotiations continue, the Senate is expected to vote on healthcare subsidies by December, leaving millions of Americans in limbo amid political gridlock. As the COP30 kicks off in Belém, Brazil, the United Nations has issued a stark warning about the growing impact of climate change on global displacement. According to a new UNHCR report, weather-related disasters have triggered over 250 million internal displacement in the past decade, an average of 67,000 people per day. The report, titled No Escape to the Way Forward, highlights how climate shocks are compounding the effects of conflict and poverty, leaving millions trapped in cycles of vulnerability. UN officials say the urgency of climate action has never been greater, with COP30 serving as a critical platform to address the humanitarian fallout of environmental crisis. Delegates from around the world are expected to review progress on emissions targets and financing commitments. As global temperatures breach the 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold for the first time, the UN is calling for stronger international cooperation to protect displaced populations and build climate resilience. In the meantime, Iran has strongly rejected U.S. claims that it orchestrated a plot to assassinate the Israeli ambassador to Mexico, calling the accusations baseless and politically motivated individuals to carry out the attack, citing intercepted communications and intelligence reports. Tehran, however, dismissed the charges as part of a broader campaign to tarnish its international image and escalate tensions in the Middle East. The Israeli government has yet to issue an official response, while Mexican authorities say they are cooperating with international partners to investigate the matter. Analysts warn that the allegation could further strain diplomatic relations and complicate efforts to de-escalate regional hostilities. The incident comes amid heightened scrutiny of Iran's foreign activities and renewed calls for accountability on the global stage. You're still watching The World in 30 Minutes live on Politics and Business Television, Abuja. Still to come, South Korea indicts former President Yoon. Welcome back. Moving on now, South Korea's special prosecutor has indicted former President Yoon Suk-yeol on charges of aiding an enemy state and abuse of power, following revelations tied to his brief imposition of martial law in 2024. Prosecutors allege that Yoon ordered drone flights over North Korea to provoke retaliation, creating a pretext for declaring emergency rule. The investigation uncovered evidence suggesting a coordinated effort involving top defense officials to escalate tensions with Pyongyang. Yoon, already facing trial for martial law-related offenses, now confronts additional legal scrutiny alongside former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun and Military Intelligence Chief Yo In-hyun. The indictments have reignited public debate over executive overreach and national security manipulation. Legal analysts say the case could set a precedent for accountability in South Korea's democratic institutions. In another development, a thick blanket of smog has once again engulfed New Delhi, prompting hundreds of residents to stage a rare protest at the iconic India Gate, chanting slogans and holding placards that read, and I quote, "I miss breathing." Demonstrators called on the government to make decisive actions against the city's worsening air pollution. The protest, which included parents, environmental activists, and concerned citizens, comes as the capital's air quality index hit a hazardous level of 344, far exceeding safe limits. Police detained dozens of protesters, citing lack of permission for the gathering, while organizers allege they were pressured to cancel the demonstration altogether. The toxic air caused by crop burning, vehicle emissions, and industrial pollutants has become an annual crisis, with little progress made in curbing its deadly impact as winter sets in. Residents fear another season of respiratory illness and environmental neglect unless urgent measures are taken. In the meantime, the Philippines is reeling from the impact of Typhoon Fangwang, which slammed into the northern region over the weekend, killing at least 4 people and displacing more than 1.4 million residents. The storm made landfall in Aurora province as a super typhoon, unleashing fierce winds, torrential rains, and deadly storm surges that triggered landslides and widespread flooding across Luzon, the country's most populous island. Rescue and recovery operations are now underway, with military and Coast Guard teams deployed to clear debris and restore access to cut-off towns. Officials say several communities remain inaccessible due to damaged roads and infrastructure, while emergency shelters continue to house thousands of evacuees. The government has lifted travel restrictions and pledged swift rehabilitation efforts to help affected families rebuild their lives. Indonesia has posthumously named former President Suharto a national hero, sparking widespread criticism from human rights activists and academics. The announcement was made during the National Hero Day ceremony, presided over by President Prabowo Subianto. Suharto's former son-in-law, Suharto, who ruled for over 3 decades until his ouster in 1998, was among 10 individuals honored this year, joining a list that includes independence leaders and reform advocates. The memory of victims of Suharto's regime, which was marked by allegations of mass human rights abuses, corruption, and authoritarian rule. Despite the backlash, government officials maintain the recognition reflects Suharto's role in national development and stability. The decision has reignited debate over historical accountability and the legacy of Indonesia's past leadership. Back to Africa, a Sudanese medical group has accused the Rapid Support Forces of attempting to cover up mass killings in Darfur by burning and burying bodies in mass graves. The Sudan Doctors Network claimed RSF fighters collected hundreds of corpses from the streets of Al Fashir following the violent takeover of the city on October 26. The group described the action as part of a full-fledged genocide, stating that such atrocities violate international norms and the right to a dignified burial. The allegations have intensified calls for an international investigation into war crimes committed during Sudan's ongoing civil conflict. Humanitarian agencies report that over 82,000 people have been displaced from Al Fashir alone, with many dying from untreated wounds or starvation while fleeing. As the crisis deepens, global pressure is mounting on Sudanese authorities and the international community to hold perpetrators accountable and protect